After being arrested for the robbery and arrested for the shooting, and after pleading guilty to all the charges related to those, and after being found not guilty on all the conspiracy charges, I was just awaiting sentencing. The sentencing guidelines, which were calculated based on sentences other people received across the Commonwealth, called for between 8 and 13 years, with the midpoint of 10 years. My lawyer said, Jesse, did some really bad shit. You got to spend 10 years in prison. You just got to own up to that. And I did. The day of sentencing, the Commonwealth modified the guidelines. They then called for between 10 and 16 and a half years, the midpoint of 13, so that's what I was expecting. Then the judge sentenced me to serve 138 years with 106 suspended, which is an active sentence of 32 years, which is basically twice the high end of the state sentencing guidelines. At that point, I didn't know what to do. I had given up hope. It took years. It took more than a decade before I began to believe that maybe I was deserving of a second chance. So guys encouraged me to file for a petition or talk to the governor, do whatever, but it wasn't until I reached that 16 and a half years, the high end of the state sentencing guidelines, that I felt comfortable. At that point, I got the little form out of the law library. I'd worked there for years. I filled it out. Just one piece of paper saying, hey, your case has to meet the extraordinary circumstances requirement. Doesn't explain what that is or how you do that. It says include this information, answer this questionnaire, and send it in. I ended up with more than 300 pages in my petition. This was letters from people on the street, letters from people in prison. It was all the documents, all the things I'd accomplished, all the things I'd done. It was a full accountability for the crimes that I'd committed. It was a full story of how I'd gotten there, of all the things I'd done while I was in prison, and of the future I imagined, the things that I wanted to do once I get out, where I wanted to heal where I'd previously harmed. Then I sent it in. I just stopped thinking about it, because back then, nobody ever got granted a conditional pardon. Like, it just didn't happen. Or if it did, somebody had conveniently made a big donation or something else was going on. Then after a couple years, it took about 2.5 years, they called me into the counselor's office and they said, Mr. Crossan, are you sitting down? This was over the phone. Because you've been granted a pardon. You're going home today. And that was the day when 2.5 years after I submitted this thing, it didn't feel real or didn't feel possible. Who just felt like, I'm doing this so that I can sleep at night. I'm doing this so I can believe I've done everything in my power and I can just deal with the rest of my time. And yet that day it became real and I went home.